Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a really heavy but super important topic: genocide. It's a word we hear thrown around a lot, right? But what does it actually mean? It's got this immense weight to it, and, well, figuring out what it really is, that's more critical now than ever. All right, to really get a handle on this, let's start with a thought experiment. Imagine two families. We'll call them the Jims and the Kufofs. Now, what happened to them is just horrific. Both families had 7 members. Both were from the Hazara ethnic group. And tragically, every single one of them was murdered on the same day. I mean, from the outside looking in, these two crimes look absolutely identical, unspeakably tragic and identical.
So, from a purely human standpoint, is there any real difference here? The gut reaction is, of course not. A family has been destroyed. The loss, the pain, it's absolute. But this is where the law, and really history, pushes us to look a little deeper, to look past the terrible act itself and ask why it happened.
So let's say the police get involved, and what their investigation uncovers are 2 motives that could not be more different. And this, right here, is where the whole story and our understanding of this crime takes a massive turn. And here's where everything changes. Get this. The murder of Family Jim, it turned out to be an act of personal revenge. Awful, yes, but it was over a long-running land dispute with a neighbor. The crime against Family Koff, though, that was something else entirely. There was no personal reason. The killers admitted their goal was to wipe out that family for one reason and one reason only: because they were Hazara. It was part of a bigger ideological plan. And that just perfectly sums up the core difference, doesn't it? One crime was about something they supposedly did, getting into a land dispute. The other was about who they were. It was about an identity they couldn't change even if they wanted to. It's this crucial difference in motive that draws the line between a terrible murder and one of the darkest crimes humanity has ever conceived. It's the difference between killing people and trying to eradicate a people. And that brings us to the actual definition. You say genocide isn't defined by the body count, not really. It's defined by the intent. It's a crime where the motive isn't personal at all. It's the specific goal to destroy, even if just in part, a whole group of people, be it national, ethnic, racial, or religious. So the attack on Family Jim was a horrific mass murder. The attack on Family Koff, that was an act of genocide. Just think about the logic behind each crime for a second. For the killers of Family Jim, their terrible act began and ended with that family because of that land dispute. But for the killers of Family Kuf, this was just one piece of a much larger, horrifying puzzle. Their hatred wasn't just for those 7 people, it was for anyone and everyone who shared that same Hazara identity. Okay, but you might be thinking, look, murder is murder. Why does this legal label even matter? And that's a fair question, because the loss of life is equally tragic in both cases. But it matters. It matters a lot, because the kind of threat we're talking about is completely different. It's an existential threat. War is brutal. Crime is terrible. But genocide is something else. It's looking at an entire group of human beings and saying, your very existence is a problem that I am going to solve. It's not about a disagreement. It's about a declaration that an entire people simply have no right to be here. And that's really the heart of it. One is a crime against individual people. The other is a crime against humanity itself. It's an attempt to tear a page out of our collective human story, to erase a culture, a history, a people, forever. That's why it needs its own name. So this idea of intent brings us to a really common and, frankly, a pretty dangerous misunderstanding about what genocide is, something you hear all the time when this topic comes up. How many times have you heard this argument? Well, it can't be genocide because there are still people from that group alive. People will literally point to the survivors as proof that the word doesn't apply. But this completely misses the entire point of even having the term in the first place. I mean, that's it. That is precisely the point. The whole reason we define and try to identify genocide is so that we can stop it before it's complete. It's like watching a house catch on fire. You wouldn't wait until it's just a pile of smoking ash to call the fire department, right? Of course not. You call the second you see the flames. So the logic is all about prevention. You have to recognize the intent to destroy the group first. That's step 1. That recognition is the signal to act, to intervene before the process is finished. And if we do manage to stop it, that doesn't mean it wasn't genocide. It means we successfully stopped a genocide.
Identifying the intent is the call to action, not the autopsy report after it's already too late.
So all this leaves us with a really big question, one that goes way beyond legal definitions and gets into our own responsibilities. If genocide is a process, not just a final result, how do we get better at spotting the warning signs? How do we learn to recognize that poisonous intent earlier? Because understanding this means we have to look at the world differently. We have to listen for that language of dehumanization and realize that the murder of just one family, when it's motivated by hatred for who they are, isn't just a tragedy. It's a fire alarm for all of humanity.